Pop icon and meme scientist Weird Al Yankovic was recently temporarily barred from releasing his latest single, Perform This Way, a parody of Lady Gaga's Born This Way. Even though Yankovic is technically allowed to release his parodies regardless of the original artist's consent under the fair use doctrine, the gentlemanly Yankovic still prefers to obtain permission, and after a little bit of public embarrassment, Miss Gaga ultimately decided to give Yankovic her blessing. But let's say Gaga decided to be a drag and not let Yankovic release his song. Could he have really released it anyway under fair use? What exactly is fair use, and where did it come from? Well, artists have been remixing the artwork of others for some time. It wasn't until the 1976 Copyright Act that it became legal in the US. This act introduced fair use, which, in a nutshell, states that a reproduction or transformation of a copyrighted work may not violate copyright if it is enriching to the general public, uses the copyrighted source sparingly, and does not cannibalize the profits of the original work. Meanwhile, in the boogie down Bronx, with only 2 turntables and a microphone, hip-hop music was born. In this new style of music, DJs would play a section of music featuring an instrumental groove, or a breakbeat, or a break, to form the backbone of hip-hop tracks. An MC would then rap over the tracks, transforming the copyrighted records into totally new works. Then, in the 1980s, the miracle of technology was born. This brought us, among other things, the sampler. Now those breaks could be recorded, looped, layered and manipulated to form new compositions. The 2 most famous breaks, Alone, the Amen break, and James Brown's Funky Drummer, have been sampled to create thousands of hip-hop records. Artists from Public Enemy to the Beastie Boys created a new sonic landscape that pushed the boundaries of music creation and created a collage of classic songs to form new works. This new form of art spread like wildfire. It was transformative, enriching to the public, and apparently a sin. At least that's what Judge Kevin Duffy declared in his clumsy ruling of the 1991 case Grand Upright Music vs. Warner Brothers Records, in which a rapper was sued for sampling. Thou shalt not steal has been an admonition followed since the dawn of civilization. Unfortunately, in the modern world of business, this admonition is not always followed. Indeed, the defendants in this action for copyright infringement would have this court believe that stealing is rampant in the music business, and for that reason their conduct here should be excused. The conduct of the defendants herein, however, violates not only the 7th commandment, but also the copyright laws of this country. While few legal experts believe Duffy's decision was wrong, it's largely considered that his own prejudice and ignorance of hip-hop culture, as evident by his frustrated fire and brimstone speech, played a large part in his ruling. And as a result of this case, sampling was no longer considered covered by fair use, which permanently changed the hip-hop industry. The consequences would never be the same. Duffy's ruling meant that if hip-hop artists wanted to sample, they now had to pay royalties to each of the original artists. This meant that hip-hop songs used fewer samples, and artists ensured they get their money's worth by presenting the samples more prominently. Fortunately, the recording industry enjoyed major profits in the 1990s, thanks to technological innovations like the compact disc. As a result, many labels had the budget to license samples to produce classic records, by the likes of Jay-Z, Nas, the Notorious B.I.G. and Coolio. By the end of the 90s, the music industry, specifically the RIAA, became huge and powerful. Too powerful. Entering an unholy alliance with the always ethical Walt Disney Corporation, the RIAA and Disney successfully lobbied for the 1998 Copyright Term Extension Act. This act, also called the Sonny Bono Act because of its support by Congresswoman Mary Bono, who is the widow of Sonny Bono, who is the divorcee of Cher, effectively extended the length of copyright to over 120 years after the death of the original artist. Which sucks. Copyright was supposed to enrich the public by allowing artists to control their work, but has instead become a tool for corporations to control the public. I wonder what would happen if we all just agreed to pretend copyright law wasn't a thing. Oh wait, that did happen. It was called Napster. No less than a year after the RIAA successfully extended the copyright, the public at large began to successfully ignore copyright. As we're all well aware, the past decade has not been good for the music industry, or the 7th commandment. It has, however, been a banner decade for remix culture. From sampling to mashups to girl talk, the last decade of music has been a celebration of the last century of music. While remixes may be becoming progressively less legally acceptable, they certainly are becoming progressively more artistically acceptable. Who can say how this disconnect between law and culture will pan out in the end? But for now, our advice to you is this: if you're going to break the law, don't get caught.